Hello there, many thanks for joining us on our Friday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you the feature on the show today as we focus on the aviation sector in Nigeria. Now, reactions and commendations continue to pour in following the inauguration of the Murtala Muhammed International Airport newly completed ultra-modern Lagos Airport terminal since the start of this week. Now, it has a three-dimensional multi-layer sorted baggage system, including 5 arrival and 6 departure systems, 7 barding bridges, as well as 60 functional hotels, restaurant and leisure facilities. Now, the airport is also equipped with Category 1 navigational equipment, safety facilities, and much more infrastructure. Well, joining me now in our Lagos studio to discuss this and much more, I have Chukwuemeka Achum, the Chief Operating Officer of Jet Support Services Limited. Thank you very much for joining us on the breakfast show this morning.
Thank you for having me, David.
We've had a whole lot of complaint as to the state of infrastructure in terms of aviation, airport infrastructure in Nigeria today, and air travelers have always lamented. Now, in terms of this new development now, what's your first reaction to the fact that we are seeing this new terminal, this facelift following what we saw play out in Abuja? Those are big, beautiful pictures we saw there. How do you see this also changing public opinion as to the sort of investment base we have within the airport space? But also, there's another issue around maintenance culture. Beyond this whole fanfare and excitement of the opening of this facility, we also have to look at how we manage them. Talking about the management now and then why government is doing this. Do you think we have any mixed match here?
Well, first of all, David, I think it's some good news coming from the Ministry of Aviation. They've been able to power through this airport regeneration exercise, which, if you remember, Kano, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Lagos were identified, during the last government as airports that would need some revamping, and they were being funded via means of some Chinese loans. The CCEC was the major contractor. However, I would like to state that, first of all, it was interesting to see that this government was able to power through an initiative that was initiated before them and deliver this airport more or less to the Nigerian public. However, the case is being made about the private sector,
airport
concessioning, which the Minister of Aviation, in the last 3 months have been more or less pushing a lot, pushing this through. So it's good news for sure. The current terminal at the Murtala Muhammed International Airport is almost nothing to write home about. But with this new investment in this new airport terminal, we're hoping to see a bit more user-friendly terminals, by past experiences. But,
we also had shortly after this exercise where the president came to Lagos, and then we had this opening exercise. Now, the Federal Executive Council has also approved the construction 92.1 billion naira for the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport's second runway. Now, it is expected this will be completed in 12 months. Now, in terms of completion time, do you think we'll be able to deliver on this?
Well, as long as the funds are available, I believe that, yes, it is possible to build a runway in 12 months. And the Abuja airport is actually due for a second runway. This has been a narrative that has been sustained over the course of the life of the airport itself. The current runway was revamped in 2017, I believe, and the second runway would, of course, add to the capacity of the airport to handle more traffic, handle emergencies, and so forth. So I do believe with the right funding, availability of funding, we should be able to complete the runway in 12 months.
And then also talking about some of the intricacies playing on within the aviation sector now, we have some trapped funds. Even according to IATA now, it says the total foreign airlines funds trapped in the country has nearly doubled from $147 million to about $283 million as at December last year. Now, the Minister of State for Aviation had a series Sirika is also calling for a special window, foreign exchange window, to defray this stock fund here and also help bring some ease in terms of this whole Jet A1 fuel scarcity that we are having at this point in time. To what extent do you think Forex allocation makes or mars the aviation sector's performance and the ability to also have the trap funds resolved?
I think it was the right forum for the Minister of Aviation to bring this up, because this is actually a big problem in the industry.
Really?
Every single ticket you buy from an international airline, David, you purchase in Naira in Nigeria, is supposed to be repatriated back to that organization in USD or Euro or whatever, you know. But that has not been prioritized. Like, according to the minister, you've seen we're seeing stock funds to the tune of about $280 million US, and this has an effect on, you know, the revenue space of these international airlines operating in Nigeria. If they cannot repatriate their monies via the CBN Forex window, what you will see, David, is you will see repatriations, you know, via the black markets, and of course this will have a direct impact on the price that these tickets are being sold to the ticket-paying customers. So, yes, aviation has to be seen as a priority sector, David. I dare say that this is one of the few industries that's actually performing right now in the industry. So the government has to take particular care, you know, to ensure that the aviation business is seamless. I mean, investors are able to repatriate their funds, and then, yeah.
And since we've seen the ban on the sale of foreign exchange to broad exchange operators in the country, banks have to make sure that we have all of these allocations. But this is not enough, because the industry feelers say what we're having in terms of allocations can't sustain the demand.
Absolutely,
there.
absolutely. I mean, the aviation industry is a highly dollarized industry, David, and the government has to realize that. I'm thankful that the Minister of Aviation knows this. I mean, it is not news, and there has been a lot of push to have the airlines have a particular window to be able to source Forex seamlessly, you know, of course, without being any bias to any other industry. But I mean, aviation is highly dollarized, David. There's no way you can function right now without Forex liquidity.
As at this time last week, the noise of fuel scarcity, aviation fuel scarcity, was one of the biggest stories we had, but it seems that noise has simmered a little bit. Would you say that we are finally having a resolution to this scarcity, and what are the industry feelers you are having so far now? The interplay with airline operations, how are they sustaining? First-hand information, what are you getting?
Well, I believe the respite is a bit short-term or intermediate, I could call it that, but I mean, we're still yet to see that document, according to the meeting between the AOA and GMD of NNPC and the regulators, that, you know, specifies a proper pricing spectrum, you know, to say, okay, you know what, this is how much the landing cost of Jet A1 in Nigeria, logistics costs, and additional premiums for profits or whatever, that, you know, the industry can have as a guide to say, okay, you know what, this is the pricing spectrum that we're working with. Airlines can budget properly, airlines can hedge properly. We just can't have a situation where we wake up tomorrow, David, and the price of Jet A1 is 300%, you know, more than
the initial costs. Looking at how we even saw the pricing from December up until January, February, and then March, it was the big boom there. Now, in terms of airlines also having a much more sustainable operational base now, do you think in the medium to long term we're still going to see this volume, this chunk aviation fuel takes up 30%, 30, 35%, even for global airlines is within that same margin? Do you think that margin will come a little smaller going forward with all of the shift we're seeing within the energy market?
Well, the current technology in the aviation industry still only supports, you know, jet engines or turbopropeller engines, which derive their feedstock from Jet A1.
Exactly.
You know, however, what we can only do, like David, like we have always said, is to find a way in the short term to guarantee the supply chain of Jet A1. Government has done the first step by deregulating. I believe government has to include more players, open up the regulatory space for Jet A1 importation, include more players. Then we would not have a situation where a few group of people will come together and then artificially...
Your talk of players makes me smile, because I know your reaction to airline operators also being issued licenses to bring in their own fuel. in your opinion, this is out of their jurisdiction or not their primary focus.
Yeah.
Is that still your line of thought?
I think it's a political respite. Really, the work stream of an airline is very complicated, David. To add, Jet A1 importation to that, I mean, the airlines have their playbooks. If any airline wants to go into Jet A1 importation, they are free to do that.
It knows what it's doing.
Yeah, but I do feel that the Jet A1 importation and dispensing is a completely different work stream from what an airline does.
Let's also look at one of the bigger issues that seemingly has the outlook of a blind spot for the Minister of Aviation here in the country, or even the federal government: maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities. Why is there still an infrastructure that is yet to get the big attention of government and force the hand of players to say this is needed here? Because in terms of cost-cutting measures, which all global players are taking much more seriously now, we also have to look at that. Why do you think it remains a blind spot or a little bit sidelined as to pending it till a later date? Why do you think we are having that with this facility?
Like we have said, David, government has no business doing business. However, we have had intervention from the Ministry of Aviation talk about, setting up an MRO, of course, through private investments. But
talk is cheap.
Yeah, talk is cheap. However, I believe the simplest way will be the government to more or less simplify the process of getting these investments into Nigeria. If you look at the airline space currently, we are expanding massively. Airlines, the Nigerian aircraft registry book is multiplying on a daily basis. So airlines definitely have the need for maintenance. So if you open up that regulatory space,
that's big business.
That's big business. And then you could have private people come in, airports like Ibadan, Benin, Ondo. These airports are lying fallow without any aeronautical activity. You could have private investments go into those airports instead of governments building airports, state governments building airports. We've seen state governments go into airlines. Why can't state governments also, open up that space for the MRO activity? So it's a bit unfair to hedge everything on the federal government, and the federal government needs to set up an MRO. But right now, the aviation industry is, quite privatized, really. So you could have, if government could prioritize the investments into MRO facilities, open up that space for private investors, I do believe we'll have a solution at hand, David.
We're wrapping up the first quarter of the year 2022. It has been an interesting play of activities for the global economy and here within the local industry for aviation in particular, with this whole aviation fuel scarcity and then the pricing of the product. Now, for Q2, the second quarter of this year, what do you see playing out, your outlook for the aviation sector?
Well, David, I've said this over and over again, aviation is one of the surest way of getting anywhere in Nigeria. That is not arrogating monopoly to aviation, but the market is critical to the business continuity of the Nigerian economy. We cannot afford to have the Nigerian aviation industry collapse. That being said, you are seeing a constant spike in demand. Airlines raised their fares by at least 100% in the last 2 months or 3 months, David. And 5 days later, there were clamors about seats being full, seats being empty. But David, that's silent right now. The airlines are operating at, above par economic activity, even at high prices. So the outlook for the industry, David, it has rebounded. The rebound is still here. Airlines are still carrying load factors. And hopefully, David.
So you believe this resilience airlines would remain unchanged?
Yes, I would just like to see us increase.
You're quite optimistic.
Yeah, David, I would like to see us expand this dominance to the West African scene. I wouldn't only want Nigerian airlines to carry only Nigerians. I want us to start, dominating along the West African scene and Africa as a whole, David. But to answer your question, David, the outlook is pretty much good for the industry.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed and see how things would also play out. It's been an interesting start to the year 2022, and we can only hope for better days ahead. Thank you so much for your time on the Breakfast Show this morning.
Thank you so much, David.